What is going on, everyone? It is AxelBeats here for AnimeUproar, and the Culling Game has kicked off in full force. And it looks like we're already getting a few of the answers we were looking for when it comes to our new friends Hiromi and Hajime. If this is going to be the pace of the entire arc, guys, we are in for a wild ride. Before we get into it though, if you enjoy this video and you want to see more Jujutsu Kaisen content on this channel, remember to leave a like and comment down below. It only takes a second, but it really does help with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you just haven't subscribed to AnimeUproar, make this the video that you do so by clicking that bell and selecting all notifications. You can also follow AnimeUproar on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar, or you can follow myself at AxelBeats. Naturally, this video will contain spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. Last week we saw Kenjaku leading non-sorcerers like Sasaki out of the barrier that he had set up as Yuji, Fushiguro, Hakari, and Panda all finally entered them. And this week we open with a woman in goggles scoping out an area, waiting for a signal from a kid named Amai. I don't believe we've seen either of these characters before, however, we do get a few subtle clues about Amai. Firstly, he is definitely not having a good time right now. It seems like he's being almost held prisoner by the woman, and he's genuinely afraid of her. Secondly, later he says that he recognizes Yuji, which, if this is the same area that Sasaki was in last week, we might be able to assume that he was a classmate of Yuji's in the past before he swallowed Sukuna's finger. It's kind of unclear if this is or isn't the same colony though. I really wish we had some kind of labeled map to work with here. But for now, that's kind of my best guess as to why this guy might know Yuji. He was friends with him in school beforehand. That said, I could be totally off though. This could just be something more central in Tokyo than I believe last time was in Sendai. The woman is waiting for new players to show up, and when Amai says that he just can't make people show up out of nowhere, she threatens him, leading him to apologize profusely. We finally see this close-up image of what she looks like, and I really need to take a moment before saying this. She has a jetpack made out of her own hair. And this made me laugh a decent bit because A, hair jetpack is just the funniest thing I've ever heard of, and B, if you've been watching the My Hero Academia chapter reviews, especially the ones from 2 or 3 months back at this point, you know that we on the channel have a new queen in Lady Nagant who just has a very similar feeling ability. That said, while I'm sure Jetpack Girl is pretty great, Lady Nagant still has my heart. We jump back to just before Yuji and Fushiguro entered the game, and Fushiguro is explaining that the real dangers are going to be the incarnated sorcerers. Why does every series I talk about have to deal with incarnations? It is getting excessive at this point. Either way, he goes on to explain that people from up to 1,000 years ago will likely make an appearance. And these people are incredibly dangerous because even if they were just from 100 years ago, they thought about death very differently. They value death in battle as an ultimate honor, and as such, they are willing to fight to the death in a way that Yuji and Fushiguro might not be used to. He hypothesizes that many of the ancient sorcerers might have even made deals with Kenjaku specifically to meet that end. Now, something I want to consider here is the location of the Culling Game zones. We don't have a ton of information on this, obviously, but last chapter we saw Kenjaku explaining how he set up the zone that Sasaki was in because it was located around a nearby execution site. I had wondered last week if that site had been where Sukuna had maybe been killed, but what if it wasn't just Sukuna? My thinking right now is that these incarnated sorcerers are the ones who had been executed in these sites, which might be a common theme among every colony. For all we know, Kenjaku traveled around Japan for the last 1,000 years, and stopped at each great sorcerer's execution just to make these deals with them so they could have one more chance to live. And while this might not seem like a big thing for these sorcerers, you gotta think that ending their story in an execution would probably be much less appealing for them than going out in a blaze of battle. Fushiguro goes on to mention that Hajime and Hiromi are possibly sorcerers just like this. Now, I can definitely see this in Hajime's case since he brought up Sukuna a while ago, but just based on Hiromi being a criminal defense lawyer and the style of the story that his chapter was revolving around, it just doesn't seem like he's from that far in the distant past. Although, maybe he had been executed for his rampage in the courtroom. Capital punishment still is very much a thing in Japan for aggravated murderers. but that's really the only way I could see him being an incarnation. And even if that is the case, I don't see him being interested in the idea of dying a noble death in battle, so maybe there's just something more we don't know about. Either way, the goal right now is to find these incarnations and see if they're willing to exchange information by force if necessary. And this is where we pick up at the end of the last chapter with the duo entering the barrier and joining the Culling Game properly. What they and we were not expecting, though, is that the second they entered the barrier, they were separated and quite literally dropped into zones at one of 9 different locations. And if you've played any online shooters in the past, especially ones with set spawn locations, you might be able to assume that there will be spawn campers, which in this game are called beginner hunters. As Yuji falls from the sky, he sees Amai waving a traffic wand at him, which signals Jetpack Girl, who launches herself at him from a far-off skyscraper and blasts into Yuji, crashing him through a building. When she is surprised that Yuji survives, she calls for backup immediately. Meanwhile, Yuji had grabbed some of the rubble from the building as he was being pushed through it, and throws it at her hard enough to knock her out of the sky and causing her to crash through a roof. I'm still kind of unclear if she's supposed to play a nameless, look how people are setting up traps in the colony kind of role, or if she's meant to do something bigger, but I highly doubt that she's actually going to be dealt with so easily. Yuji only really has moments to think about how he needed to ask her questions before someone shows up and asks, "Who do you think you are, and what are you doing to my woman?" And, I gotta be honest with you. If the girl's design was a little bit strange, this guy is just ridiculous. Rather than a jetpack, it looks like his hair is being used like a helicopter's propeller, which, sure, why not? He looks kind of like a typical tough guy with a vest with a shark's face on it, obviously representing how he's preying on new arrivals, but we don't really get too much time with him as the last thing we see on Yuji's half of the chapter is Amai questioning if Hanyu, the jetpack girl, has been defeated as he notices Haba, the helicopter man, has showed up. Finally, the last thing that we see him say is that he recognizes Itadori as well. Over to Fushiguro, we see that just like Yuji, he is practicing true gender equality like our Lord and Savior Kazuma. A woman is asking why he would possibly hit her, only for him to say, "You hit me first." He also apparently sent Nue out to look for Yuji, but to no avail, leading him to believe that Yuji is likely more than 2 kilometers away. And for our American viewers, that's about 78,740 inches. Or for our gamers out there, the length of 16,302 Monster Energy cans stacked up on top of each other. I hope that cleared things up. Fushiguro goes on to interrogate the woman about Hiromi. First, she tries to stop the conversation and say how men think that women will just obey them after they strike them, leading us to believe that she might have had a bit of a rough past, but Fushiguro quickly changes the subject back to Hiromi. She offers that she could tell Fushiguro about him, but in exchange, he has to become her knight, which he agrees to immediately to get the conversation going. Now, I am 300% sure that this is a disastrous trap. If there's one thing I know about the series, it's that the abilities are as varied and unique as possible, but they also tend to be very strange, and agreeing to become someone's knight could very likely be a trigger for some kind of ability, specifically one which might force Fushiguro to protect her. In general, I super don't trust this girl as it is. At least with Jetpack Girl, we could see straightforward that she was not trustworthy, but this girl seems more manipulative and cunning. For example, using the fact that men aren't expected to hit girls to attack people unsuspectingly, trying to guilt Fushiguro after he retaliated, then only offering information under specific circumstances. At the very least, she's just not showing all of her cards right now. She reminds him that it's a knight's job to protect her, and he very coldly says that it depends on if she's telling the truth. Because he's different from Yuji, and if she's lying, he is more than happy to earn the 100 points for himself. Now, when I say that this page gave me chills, listen, we all know that Fushiguro has always been a more direct character than Yuji, but the look on his face here is brutal and savage. And even the last note on the chapter from the narrator explains that he might be being led towards a path of carnage. I am so excited to see this more dangerous Fushiguro in the future, and honestly, I'd be surprised if he remains in this hero role for the entirety of the series. He definitely strikes me as someone who will eventually be forced to walk a slightly darker path. Not exactly an evil one, but more in line with maybe the Punisher, where he might make a few more dark and drastic decisions to reach his goals. I could even see him maybe being similar to Light in Death Note, doing something that he believes is truly good at first, but losing himself along the way. But that would be the worst case scenario. Either way, the woman just puts on a sly smile and tells him to not call her you anymore, and to start calling her Remy, totally unbothered by his threats. And here is where the extremely hype chapter comes to an end. I really like this one. We got some great questions that need answering, specifically with Amai and the incarnations. We saw our lads get separated, which always adds a lot of tension. We had some really fun and quick-paced action. And of course, we had another hint towards Fushiguro's darkening path. So much great stuff in one chapter, and I really hope they can keep up this pace going forward. But we will have to wait and see. And just a reminder, next week it does look like Jujutsu Kaisen is taking a break, so just a heads up for that. In any case though, I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on this chapter. What did you think? What is up with the incarnations? And do you think my idea of them being linked to the execution sites is correct? Furthermore, who is Amai, and do you think that Fushiguro will eventually be forced to start killing or just walk a generally more ambiguously good road in the future? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this Jujutsu Kaisen video and you want to see more, please leave a like. And if you're new to AnimeUproar, remember to subscribe and ring that bell. By selecting all notifications, you can help guarantee that you will not miss any videos in the future. And of course, you can always follow the channel at AnimeUproar on Twitter or Instagram, or you can follow myself at AxelBeats. I want to give a big thank you to all of our patrons over on Patreon who allow videos like this to be possible, especially the patron of legend, the one who's acknowledged by Lord Twigo himself, Alpha Sigma. As well, our the 1-tier patrons, the ones who stand above all clans, Ingrata, Pate Hefa, Aljatal, Hinokami and Water, The Toasted She, The Spike 8227, Corey McGowan, Dylan Isidore, Spidey Life Tanel, Tungsten Tarkus, Baked Buddhist, Cody Hebert, and Monkey D. Quilly. Finally, our Pro Hero tier patrons, Gilgamesh, The Red-Haired Raven, Anel Cruz, Rathuin De Ora, Very Gucci, Alicia Octor, Bonnie Parks, Joanne Garcia, Ted No Ted, Fatboy Games, and Soulrise Slice and Dice. If you enjoy our work, or maybe think we just offer a little bit of extra enjoyment in your day-to-day life, please consider going to patreon.com/AnimeUproar and supporting the channel. For as little as $1, you will get your name featured in future videos, as well as have access to our exclusive patron-only Discord. You can also join the YouTube channel by clicking that blue join button next to the subscribe option, but whichever way you support us, you will get these same great benefits. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, stay excellent.